solving absolute values. In the previous chapter, we learned 8 minus 12, or 8 minus 11, sure, whatever. 8 minus 11, that gets you the absolute value of -3, which then turns it into 3. So we learned how to evaluate absolute value expressions. Then we ended up learning how to graph things, which we'll still do a little bit more of, and how everything in absolute value, whatever the equation is, so maybe something like that, has to be positive, and nothing can be down here. So we end up having to graph an equation and then flip things up. And so now what we're doing is we're actually solving. And so, for instance, if I had the absolute value of x, just x, is equal to 2, it's like, well, what could that be? Well, x could be 2, but it could also be -2. If I put 2 into here, the absolute value of 2 is 2. And if I made a negative, the absolute value of -2 is also 2. So you can have 2 or -2. We'll have, there's a lot of 2's here, but we'll have 2 answers. In the same way, x plus 1 is equal to 5. So like, okay, well, this inside could be 5 and it could be -5. So say I made x to be 4. 4 plus 1 is going to be 5. So that could work. But I could also have x equals -6. And you're like, maybe like, what? -6? Well, let's say I made -6 in here. -6 plus 1 is going to be -5. And that actually will be 5, which is what we want. So x could be 4. And x could be -6. And so we're going to have to we're going to solve, and there's usually 2. But there could be more. So the first thing we need to do when we solve these is get the absolute value alone. So get the absolute value alone. So that's always our goal. That's what we want to do first. Get the absolute value alone. So number 1. Example 1, letter A. I'm going to add the 5 over. The absolute value of x is equal to 8 plus 5, which is 13. So this x could be 13, but it could also be -13. And that would be all there is to it. So let's try B. Well, I mean, actually, before we do B, let's try to do a check here. So when x is 13, let's do that check. So you put the absolute value of 13 minus 5 is equal to 8. The absolute value of 13 is 13. 13 minus 5 is equal to 8. 13 minus 5 is 8 equals 8. So that works. Whoops. And then there's another option. X equals -13. So you put -13 in there. So -13 is for where your x was. Minus 5 equals 8. The absolute value of -13 is just 13. 13 minus 5 is equal to 8. 13 minus 5 is 8. 8 is equal to 8. So these both work. Sometimes they won't work, but these ones both do. So again, what do? Well, you get the absolute value alone, and then usually the answer becomes pretty obvious in these ones. But it's not always the case. So let's try here. We're going to minus the 2 over. So the absolute value of x minus 5 is equal to 10 minus 2, which is 8. Now this inside, there's multiple ways to think about this, which I know is frustrating, but this inside here, x minus 5, I wouldn't mind if that was 8, but I also wouldn't mind if the x minus 5, if this inside here, I don't know what on earth is happening. Sorry, x minus 5 is equal to 8. Let me just try that again. So I'm okay if this inside, the x minus 5, I'm okay, I don't know why I write x equals. I'm okay if the x minus 5, if that was equal to 8, and I'm also okay if that was equal to -8. If that inside was 8, or if that inside was -8, both of those things would be okay because the absolute value of 8 or -8 would be 8. So what ends up happening is you separate these. So in order to get rid of an absolute value, you have an original version the 8, it equals 8. And then you have the negated version, it equals negative 8. So these become pretty easy questions to solve. I need to get rid of the minus 5, so I'll add it onto both sides, plus 5 and plus 5. 5 plus, those are gone. So x is equal to 8 plus 5, which is 13. All right. And this one was equal to negative 8. So I'm going to add 5 again. I don't know why I did that in green, but okay. And x is equal to negative 8 plus 5, which is, I think, negative 3. So we have two answers, x equals 13 and x equals negative 3. So let's check these just to make sure that they work. So I'm going to check x equals 13. That's the one I'm going to check first. And I'm probably going to run out of room here, but actually I am 100% going to run out of room. So I'll do it here and then I can just erase it after. So I'm going to check x equals 13. That's what I'm going to check first. And then later on I'll check x equals negative 3. So I take 13 and I put it back into the original equation. So instead of x minus 5, I'll have 13 minus 5 in absolute values. Plus 2 is equal to 10. 13 minus 5 is 8. The absolute value of 8 plus 2 is equal to 10. Now the absolute value of 8 is just 8. So 8 plus 2 equals 10. And 8 plus 2 is 10. And that equals 10. Okay, that works. Now let's try this one, the negative version. So, because it's possible that these won't work sometimes. Negative 3 minus 5. So instead of x minus 5, I put negative 3 minus 5, because that's what I have for x. Plus 2 is equal to 10. Now negative 3 and negative 5 will get me negative 8 in absolute values. Plus 2 equals 10. And negative 8, the absolute value of that is positive 8. Plus 2 is equal to 10. And 8 plus 2 is 10. So again, I just take the x in the original equation and replace it with my answer. Either way, I get 10 equals 10, 10 equals 10. Both of those get true statements. So you can pause it here, and if you need to copy any of this down, but both of these work because we plugged it in, we checked it, and they both give us a true statement, 10 equals 10. So now I have to just erase this. Okay. And try the next one. So I need to get the absolute value alone. So I'll add 4 to this. Plus 4. Plus 4. That's gone. 7 plus 4 is 11. 11 is equal to the absolute value of x plus 2. Now, I'd be okay if the x plus 2, that's our inside, I'd be okay if that equals 11, but I'd also be okay if that x plus 2 was equal to negative 11. I am okay with either of those options. I'm okay if x plus 2 was 11, or the negated version where x plus 2 can equal negative 11. Either way, I need to solve for x. I'm going to minus 2 and minus 2. X is equal to 11 minus 2, which is 9. Okay, so that's one of my answers, which I'll have to check. Here I'll minus 2 and minus 2. Whoops. X is equal to negative 11, negative 2, which is negative 13. All right, so I have two possible answers. Now let's actually check this thing. Check. The first one is x equals 9. And the other one will be x equals negative 13. So x equals 9. I'll put that into the original equation. So 7 equals x plus 2, but I have 9 plus 2. 9 plus 2 minus 4. And I'll write this down so I don't forget. 7 equals x plus 2, which is negative 13 plus 2. And absolute value is minus 4. Okay, let's just deal with the left side. 9 plus 2 is 11. So the absolute value of 11 minus 4. Now the absolute value of 11 is just 11 minus 4. And 11 minus 4 is 7. Okay, so that works. But will this one? Okay, 7 is equal to negative 13 plus 2, which is negative 11. In absolute values, minus 4. Now the absolute value of negative 11 is just 11. Okay, so 11 minus 4 and 11 minus 4, all right, is 7. Okay, so both of those work. I have confirmed that they both work, so our answers are good. Now, so far, we have not run into any that don't work. Everything here did work. But I think in the next time, what does it say here? Oh yeah, it's the next time. However, they can So we're going to have extraneous solutions, ones that must be rejected. Yeah, so we'll be doing that just in a moment.